Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and today we're diving into a topic that's both exciting and challenging: how to speak advanced English. If you've been feeling stuck at an intermediate level and are ready to take your English skills to the next level, you're in the right place.
That's right, Jason. Hi, everyone. I'm Julia, your co-host. Learning to speak advanced English can feel overwhelming, but it's absolutely achievable with the right strategies and mindset. In today's episode, we'll share practical tips, common pitfalls to avoid, and some fun ways to boost your fluency. By the end of this conversation, you'll have clear steps to level up your English skills.
Absolutely. And speaking advanced English isn't just about using big words or complicated grammar. It's about communicating with confidence, precision, and nuance. So, whether you're preparing for a job interview, studying abroad, or simply aiming to express yourself more effectively, this episode has something for you.
Exactly. So grab a notebook or just sit back and relax as we guide you through the best tips to master advanced English. Let's get started.
So, Julia, I've been thinking about this lately. When I first started learning a new language, I remember feeling pretty confident at the beginner and intermediate levels. But when I tried to have deeper conversations or sound more natural, I hit a wall. Have you ever experienced something similar?
Oh, absolutely, Jason. I remember when I was learning French. At first, it was all about simple phrases and basic conversations, but once I needed to express myself in a more sophisticated way, like sharing opinions or discussing abstract topics, it became so challenging. It felt like I knew what I wanted to say, but just didn't have the words or tools to say it fluently.
Exactly. And I think that's where a lot of English learners get stuck too. They know the basics, but struggle to sound polished or natural when speaking advanced English. It's almost like they've reached a plateau, and they're not sure how to break through.
Yes, and that plateau can be really frustrating. I've noticed that many learners at this stage still rely on the same basic vocabulary and grammar structures they learned at the start. They haven't explored the more nuanced aspects of the language, like idioms, expressions, or even cultural references, which can really help them sound more advanced.
Exactly, Julia. And sometimes it's not just about the language itself. It's about confidence, too. Learners might hesitate to use new words or try advanced expressions because they're afraid of making mistakes or sounding awkward.
That's so true. But here's the thing. Mistakes are part of the process. If you're not making mistakes, you're not growing. And today, we're going to help our listeners move past that fear and give them practical tips to sound more advanced in English without feeling overwhelmed.
Absolutely. So, let's dive into the real meat of today's episode: the best tips to speak advanced English. Trust me, these tips are going to change the game for a lot of listeners. All right, let's get to the heart of today's episode: our top tips for speaking advanced English. We've broken this down into practical, easy-to-follow strategies that you can start using today. Julia, what's the first tip on our list?
Tip number 1, expand your vocabulary. This means going beyond basic words and learning advanced expressions, idioms, and phrasal verbs. For example, instead of saying "I'm very tired," you could say "I'm completely exhausted" or "I'm drained." These subtle changes make your English sound more polished and natural.
Absolutely. And one great way to do this is by reading widely: novels, newspapers, or even professional blogs. Pay attention to how words are used in different contexts. Oh, and don't forget to jot down new words and practice using them in sentences. Julia, how about tip number 2?
Tip number 2 is mastering pronunciation and intonation. It's not just about the words you use, but how you say them. Advanced speakers often use stress and intonation to emphasize certain points, making their speech more engaging. For example, listen to how native speakers change their tone when asking questions or showing excitement.
Great point, Julia. A good way to practice this is by shadowing, listening to native speakers in podcasts, movies, or YouTube videos, and then repeating what they say, mimicking their tone and rhythm. It's like singing along to your favorite song, but with spoken English.
Exactly. Now on to tip number 3. Using advanced grammar naturally. This is where a lot of learners get intimidated, but it doesn't have to be complicated. For instance, instead of always saying, "I will do this," try mixing in different tenses, like, "I'm going to do this," or "I would have done this if..." It shows flexibility in your language skills.
That's a game changer, Julia. And to practice this, I recommend writing short stories or journal entries and intentionally using different tenses and sentence structures. It's a fun way to challenge yourself. Now, what's tip number 4?
Tip number 4 is improving your active listening skills. Listening is key to understanding advanced English, especially when native speakers use slang, contractions, or fast speech. Try listening to podcasts or audiobooks and focus on how words are connected or shortened in conversations.
Right? And don't just passively listen. Pause the audio, repeat sentences, and try to guess the meaning of new phrases from the context. This habit will help you catch nuances and learn how to use those phrases in your own speech. Finally, Julia,
Number 5.
what's our 5th?
Immerse
and
yourself
final
in English environments. This doesn't mean you have to move to an English-speaking country, but surround yourself with English as much as possible. Watch movies without subtitles, think in English, and even change your phone settings to English.
That's such a great tip, Julia. Immersion forces you to interact with the language naturally, which is the best way to grow. And don't forget to practice speaking, even if it's just talking to yourself or recording your voice. It helps you get comfortable with using the language in real time.
Exactly, Jason. It's all about making English a part of your daily life. Even small changes can make a big difference over time.